What's going on, folks? I've got another little Call of Duty discussion for you today. In my first impressions video, a lot of people were criticising me for being the typical Call of Duty player who complains that nothing's new but also hates all the new features. But while I wasn't really overly impressed with the new game, I do appreciate some of the new features that have been introduced. They've certainly enhanced the game in some ways, but what I find really disappointing is that they always seem to take a step back from the innovations made on the previous title. I mean, there's some examples such as the Pick 10 system, which has obviously been built upon, but today I've got a list of top things, some big, some small, that are missing from the game that I think should have been included. A lot of these things have been present in Call of Duty since the early days, so it doesn't really make much sense for them not to include them, the result being a slightly diminished user experience. Obviously there might be some reasons behind each of these points, some of which I can offer some possible reasoning for, but first up is the lack of theatre mode. This was a big innovation in Black Ops 1 and it continued into Modern Warfare 3 and Black Ops 2, but for some reason it's disappeared for Call of Duty Ghosts. One possible reasoning for this is that it was once thought to be the cause of all these new lag issues from Black Ops 1. This is when the term lag compensation became a buzzword, and that annoying feeling you get in game when you shot around corners and you die instantly has continued in all the titles since. But with all that said, we're a few days into Call of Duty Ghosts already, and I've certainly experienced some of those annoying situations where you still get shot after you've rounded a corner. So maybe the theatre mode wasn't the cause of those lag issues after all. There's some reports that the next-gen consoles can record your gameplay, but I can't imagine that including the abilities to navigate the map in third person like you could in theatre mode. My guess is that it's going to be a built-in feature to record, much like a YouTube commentator does with a PVR or capture device. One minor feature that I find missing in the game is the lack of connection bars. This is particularly annoying at the moment because we're all playing on the old host system, but you could argue that it's not going to be needed come next gen consoles when we're all playing on dedicated servers. But even then, I'd still like to know if I'm on a nearby server or playing on one that's halfway around the world on a 3-bar. Another interface setting that's been removed for no apparent reason is the audio control settings. The first thing I usually do in any new Call of Duty is go in and turn off the in-game music. The last thing I want when I'm in try-hard mode or when I'm trying to record clips for a video is having some background music obscuring the in-game sound effects. This feature's been around since the very first Call of Duties in every title since, so why is it not possible anymore? One new feature of Call of Duty Ghosts that I really appreciate is the range of new game modes. While I'm not a fan of some of them, it's still nice to see some new ideas, but I think they really missed out by not including Treyarch's Hardpoint mode from Black Ops 2, especially considering the size of these new Ghost maps. Hardpoint would have been the perfect game mode, since it would have made use of the entire map rather than having a few select hotspots, and it would have made it impossible for players to make their way to the next Hardpoint zone in advance like you could on the smaller maps. Talking about game modes, it's also a shame that there's a lack of ground war, which was very surprising. Again, this game mode's been around in Call of Duty forever, and considering the size of these new maps, it sometimes makes the gameplay quite slow. These new Call of Duty Ghost maps seem the perfect size for ground war lobbies, but again, maybe this is another feature that's being reserved for the next gen consoles. Hopefully we'll then see higher play counts. Then there's one more feature that's not been included in Call of Duty Ghosts that the internet has exploded over, and that is the lack of league play that was introduced in Black Ops 2. This is something I'm not personally too familiar with. I never really tried out league play in Black Ops 2, but I know it was a pretty popular mode for teams. Infinity Ward have kind of replaced this with their clan versus clan system, which is really tailored towards Call of Duty's own tournaments, but this is going to be nowhere near as in-depth as the Black Ops 2 system, so I can understand why people might be a little bit frustrated over it. So many of these missing features are only minor disappointments, but when they all stack up, it's quite easy to see why people aren't too overjoyed with the new Call of Duty Ghosts title. You always expect every new game title to improve over the previous one, and while Ghosts has improved the gameplay in some aspects, it makes it difficult to appreciate those new features when the game has kind of taken a step back in some regards. But I guess with all that said, we can only be thankful that there's one feature that's finally not been included in an Infinity Ward title, that is the infamous death streaks. Treyarch immediately removed these come Black Ops 1, but once again we saw them come back in Modern Warfare 3. Treyarch continued to keep them out for Black Ops 2, so thankfully Infinity Ward this time have had their heads screwed on right and not included them again. I think in terms of innovative features, we can now only look forward to Treyarch's next Call of Duty title, hopefully then with it being a complete next-gen game. With the dedicated servers, we'll have a nice mix of gameplay plus a well-polished product. But let me know down in the comments if there's any of the features from previous games that have been missed out in Ghosts that you've noticed and wish were included. Despite all the critique of the game so far, I guess we're still going to have to wait until the launch of the next-gen title to really get a feel for how the game plays and kind of reserve our final judgment until then. But as always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all later.